everybody, and if you are a college football fan, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. That is all we do here every single day. And don't forget to send gear to represent your team to be on my back wall forever. All you have to do is send your gear. It can be a shirt, a mini helmet, a jersey, a cup, whatever you want to send to this address. P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. People have already sent me a lot of great stuff. It's on my back wall, but I still need more. Well, now I'm in the car line, so it looks like I'm going to have to do a car video. And Shane Lyons has confirmed that Neal Brown is not going to be fired, at least not before the end of this season. Donors are not too happy about this, and now they want Shane Lyons to be fired. I mean, after all, he is responsible for the contract extension of Neal Brown and the massive buyout. Yes, we went 6-4 in 2020. But that's all we saw. That's all we knew. There wasn't any substance to it. I think that was way too early for a contract extension. And yes, I have been defending Neal Brown because our offenses sucked and we haven't had a decent quarterback. Well, we have JT Daniels now, so we have a great quarterback. There is no excuse for us to start the season 0-2, and especially losing to Kansas. And I know Kansas could actually be really, really good, but that also is a wait-and-see approach. And if you watch the game, our defense was flat out lazy. Even the announcers straight up said, man, I do not like the body language that I'm seeing from the West Virginia defense. That was coming from the announcer. Our defense, slow, lazy, miscommunication. They didn't know what they were doing out there. And I know there's a lot of young guys. But man, the 1 year we get our offense fixed, now our defense takes a big step back. It just never comes together for Neal Brown. Well, we're going to have to get through this season. We'll see what the final record is, but if he goes anything lower than 8-4, he's got to go. I know the buyout drops to $16.5 million, and that's still a lot of money, but we don't want to do what we did with Dana Holgorsen and hold on to him for way too long and be in the land of mediocrity for even longer. West Virginia is better than that. People have forgotten how good West Virginia can be. All you have to do is look at before Dana Holgorsen and after Dana Holgorsen. That's it. Oh, but going to blue, did West Virginia was in the Big East. Yeah, and the Big East was pretty good back then, producing national champions and national runner-ups. So I don't even want to hear that. West Virginia has the potential to be a great program. We've done it before. So, if and when Neal Brown does get fired, who should West Virginia hire? Well, I'm glad you asked. I have a nice little list for that. First up is Jeff Tedford, the head coach of Fresno State, who does less with more. Unlike Jimbo Fisher, you will not see Jimbo Fisher on this list. I like this guy. He's had a lot of success, and he knows how to beat the bigger names with less talent. I like him, but he's not higher on the list because he is a Group of 5 coach. What about Greg Ciano at Rutgers? Well, we faced him back in the Big East. They were good in the Big East under Greg Ciano, and it looks like Rutgers is good again under Greg Ciano. I don't know if he'd be willing to leave Rutgers, and I bet Tennessee is a little anxious as far as passing on him. Although Josh Heupel is working out for the time being, Greg Ciano has Rutgers on the up and up. What about Marshall's Charles Huff? They just beat Notre Dame. He's recruiting at a Power 5 school level at freaking Marshall. I mean, stealing Marshall's head coach and having success with him, that would be a win-win for West Virginia. What about Dave Clawson at Wake Forest? Well, he does have some defensive issues, but man, Wake Forest can score some points, and they've been in ACC contention for the past couple years. He has Wake Forest being an actually decent team, a top 25 team. I wouldn't mind him at West Virginia. What about Matt Rule, the head coach for the Carolina Panthers? No, he's not working out in the NFL, but when he was in college football, Matt Rule had the Baylor Bears humming. He's great on offense. He knows how to get the defense fixed as well, even though he's not necessarily defensive-minded. I think he'd be a great head coach for West Virginia. He has Power 5 experience and success at the Power 5 level. I think he'd be great at West Virginia. What about Tom Allen at Indiana? And yes, I know they went 2-10 last year, but they were decimated by injuries. Tom Allen has had actual success in Indiana. Who does that? If he can have success in Indiana, he can have success at West Virginia. What about Jonathan Smith, the head coach of Oregon State? My gosh, he has done wonders there. Oregon State is looking like a Pac-12 contender this year. They've already mopped the floor with Boise State at home, and then they went on the road and beat a good Fresno State. If this keeps up with Jonathan Smith, then West Virginia definitely needs to look into Jonathan Smith. He's looking like a great head coach. Having success at the Power 5 level is a major plus when looking for a coach. What about Gus Mazon from UCF? And yes, I know he was fired from Auburn, but Auburn is in a mess right now with Brian Harsin anyways. And Gus Mazon has done a great job at UCF so far. I think Gus Mazon is a name to keep your eyes on for West Virginia. He's had success in the Power 5 in the past as well. What about former Washington State head coach Nick Rolovich? Nick Rolovich had Washington State humming, and he got fired because he wouldn't get the COVID vaccine because he was classified as a Washington State employee, the head coach of Washington State, and he wouldn't get it. So he wasn't fired for the lack of success. He was just fired for not complying. Well, you really don't have to worry about that at West Virginia, and we worry about success here at West Virginia, so I think he'd be a nice candidate. What about the former head coach for Washington, Chris Peterson? Now, this is a big if because I don't know if he'd ever come out of retirement. He had Washington playing at a high level when he did retire. Would he be willing to come back and take a chance on West Virginia? I don't know, but I think he'd be worth looking into. What about Cincinnati's Luke Fickell? I don't know if Luke Fickell will ever leave Cincinnati now that they're coming to the Big 12, but if there's ever a chance, you have to at least take a shot. You miss 100% of the shots that are not taken. So if there's even a minute chance of getting Luke Fickell, you have to try. What about Matt Campbell at Iowa State? Well, Matt Campbell, I know, he hasn't had massive success. Iowa State is one of the worst football programs in history. He has done more with less. I think he's a great candidate to replace Neal Brown at West Virginia. I think he'd have a lot of success at West Virginia, actually. He has Big 12 experience. He's had actual success at Iowa State, which is rare. Yeah, I think he could get the job at West Virginia. What about the defensive coordinator at Texas, Gary Patterson? And yeah, I know he was fired from TCU, but the dude does know how to win. Maybe all he needs is a fresh start in a new place, and West Virginia would be a big change of scenery, and I think he could have success at West Virginia. That's a big name worth going for. What about the head coach for Liberty, Hugh Freeze? I think you most definitely would have to go after Hugh Freeze. I know he has baggage from Ole Miss, but it looks like he's grown up from that, and he's brought Liberty from oblivion. Nobody even knew that Liberty had a football team, and Liberty's having great success. And he has experience at the Power 5 level, success at the Power 5 level. You need to look into Hugh Freeze for sure. What about the former head coach for Texas, Tom Herman? I think Tom Herman would be perfect at West Virginia, especially getting an ex-coach of Texas and having success with him. He was having success at Texas, that is for sure. What I was hearing is Booster didn't like him. That's what it came down to. Boosters didn't like Tom Herman. He had a 10-win season, took a slight step back, went 8-5, and then went 7-3 in the COVID year, was one game away from playing in the Big 12 championship, but the Boosters didn't like him, so he had to go. I think Tom Herman is a must at West Virginia. And finally, the head coach at Kansas, the team that just beat us, Lance Leopold. My gosh, he is turning that team around quickly. I know it is a long season, and Kansas still has a lot to prove. And West Virginia's defense did not play up to their potential, so maybe that was a little more on West Virginia than what we're willing to admit. But Kansas did look good on offense. We have to admit that. Not all that great on defense, but they do look good on offense. Kansas could most definitely be a bowl team this year. And if Lance Leopold gets Kansas to a bowl, he is most definitely worth looking into for the next head coach at West Virginia. So y'all let me know in the comments section, do you like this list? And did I leave anybody out? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.